Hi y'all! So, it's time for another Talkin Tarot, and it's Leo season, like fully, officially all in. So, I couldn't think of anything more Leo than to have a mug with my face on it that I'm drinking out of. So, grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your golden milk, because we're going to talk today about some old school tarot. A lot of people ask me about the more standard cards that are in what is known as the Rider Waite Smith deck. A lot of times this deck, you'll see it published as just Rider Waite, and the reason why I add the Smith in there, and newer versions of this deck will include Smith, is because Pamela Coleman Smith was the artist that drew and designed all of the tarot cards in this classic deck. The Rider Waite Smith deck is one of the most classic standard tarot decks out there. And it was published, I should have looked this up before I started talking. It was published in around the 1930s, I believe. Go fact check me. Good morning, Kelby. Good morning, Julie. So the deck's been out a while, and it features even like older images. It's very Renaissance themed, because the tarot cards were originally estimatedly developed around the 1400s, like 1430-ish. But they were initially just used as a playing card game. They weren't used for divination like they are now. There's not a lot of super great history on tarot, but the most evidence people can find of these cards being used for divination is really, it picked up speed in the 19th century. So in the 1800s, with this rising interest in the occult, in theosophy, there was a lot of interest in Eastern mysticism and Buddhism and Hinduism, and all of the stuff like talking to the dead and paranormal activity and psychic senses. Good morning, Ellie. It's good to see y'all. So, this deck is just one. It's the one most people think of when they think of tarot, because there weren't as many deck options for a while. Tarot wasn't quite as popular as it is now. And so you can see I'm just showing some of the images from this deck. It's very Renaissance-y. All of the people in it, it's all white people. Mostly men featured in the cards. A few of the cards have women. Like, here's the World. But most of the cards have men, the High Priestess. So, when I started reading tarot, I had a deck that wasn't the Rider Waite Smith deck, but it was similar in that it was like very like Renaissance-y. Oh, I just like dropped a whole bunch of cards because I think the Magician wanted to be shown. This is like the cover image of this deck, the Magician card. So, if you have seen this image, most people like see this, and even if you don't consciously know it's tarot, on a subconscious level, this image is so embedded in the collective consciousness as like a very classic tarot card that you're probably familiar with this on some level, even if your mind isn't like letting you know what this is. You know what this is. But I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's so important when you're reading tarot to have a deck you resonate with. And when I started reading tarot, I didn't really connect with the deck I had, which was very similar to this one, very Renaissance themed. I liked the images, like they were pretty, but I just was having a hard time. I had this dinky little guidebook that came in the tarot deck that just listed keywords for every card, and it wasn't really working for me. So I found, a year into, reading cards for myself, I found the Osho Zen deck, which is a very different tarot deck, but I clicked with it right away. I loved the images. I had already been studying Buddhism, so I really liked the whole Zen approach, and I know there's issues with Osho and all of that. I'm not gonna get into that right now. That deck really spoke to me though, and it really helped me incorporate tarot and have it become a part of my spiritual practice and my own journey into like deeper self-awareness. So I have come back in the years since I really built a fluency with tarot and reading cards through this Osho deck. I came back to the Rider Waite Smith deck because I realized that even if the images didn't initially speak to me, they really are layered with symbolism. There is so much going on in every card, and everything on here means something. And once I realized that, and I had already had a more basic awareness of how to read cards, something clicked for me. And I was like, oh man, and this is what tarot evolved out of, these more Renaissance images, because even though the Rider Waite Smith deck didn't really come out until the early 20th century, it was based on these older images as well. And so I'm going to show you one of the things that has really helped me in expanding my appreciation of the Rider Waite Smith deck, which also then expanded my basis in understanding tarot. It's this amazing book. I love it. It's called The Ultimate Guide to the Rider Waite Tarot. They left the Smith out. We'll forgive them. But again, there's that classic image of the magician right there. This is a great book. It is by Johannes Feibig and Evelyn Berger. And it's just a great book. It's easy to read. It's written in a very conversant tone. But my favorite thing about this book is it breaks down each card. It tells you, it walks you through the symbolism. All these different numbers are pointing to a part of the card. And then it explains what each part means. And this just really helped open my eyes to how much is going on here. So we're going to talk about this Chariot card and all the different parts of it. One thing you'll notice is some of the symbolism repeats itself in different ways. So we have the two sphinxes down here. And the sphinxes speak to like life's mysteries and riddles. But also, you'll notice that one is white and one is black. So right away, you can see there's a polarity, and trying to balance this polarity. This theme is repeated. You saw it in the High Priestess card with a white pillar and a black pillar. It's repeated throughout the tarot. So anytime you see something white and something black, know that it's speaking to polarity, duality, and some type of like coming between them, like bringing something into balance. There's a Shiva Lingam right here in the middle of this little shield on the front of the chariot. Shiva Lingam also represents a coming together of opposites or polarities, the masculine with the feminine. It's coming together. And then on his shoulders, can you see the shoulders? There's a moon. One moon is smiling and one is laughing, sort of like a moon face on the shoulders. The epaulettes, I believe they're called. And this moon face is another symbolism of the smiling face with the laughing face, of balancing different polarities. So the Chariot, one of the messages of the Chariot card is about, like, you're the one holding the reins, you're steering the chariot, but you have to balance these different parts of yourself, these different polarities of life. You're gonna experience all of it, and in order to really clearly and directly steer that chariot where you want it to go, you have to be able to bring seemingly opposite forces and energies together and get them both moving in the direction of your choosing. At its core, the Chariot is a card of like energy that's moving you forward, but also being really clear on who you are and what you want. There's a balance here between the armor the charioteer is wearing, and there's this little openness like around his neck, which is a really vulnerable place. So being vulnerable, but boundaried and protected. There's the starry kind of canopy above him is like connecting to the infinity of space and like the divine and the cosmos. There is expansiveness at his crown. There's a balance of nature down here and the city. And so all of it, and then they call it, Father City and Mother Nature when they explain it. So there's a lot going on. There's more than what I've even talked about just now, but just know that there's every card in this deck, there's that High Priestess again. It has so much symbolism. The black pillar and the white pillar, and she's seated between it. There's pomegranates behind her. The pomegranate is a mythical fruit that is said to have 108 seeds. 108 is the number of enlightenment in Buddhism. It represents fertility. The seeds have this blood red juice. There's a richness to the pomegranate and a wish fulfilling capacity. It's also connected to the myth of Persephone. So one thing, understanding myth, and I've talked about this before, but understanding myths across cultures, you will see it in the Rider Waite deck. It is portrayed here. We talked about the Hanged Man already, hanging upside down like Odin from the Tree of Life. And so knowing these myths, also, you'll see it in the card, but even if you don't know it, if you get the Rider Waite Smith deck and start researching it, you will find more information about it. And so the colors all mean something, right? The color, she's in blue, which is like opening the intuition, opening the throat, speaking the truth, having clear sight. The High Priestess is a card of intuition. You see this crescent moon down here. She's able to go into the depths, but also like bring forth the light. She is the embodiment of a powerful divine feminine figure. She's got the moon phases as her crown. So she's able to move. She's fluid. She moves from darkness to light and back again, from fullness to a void and back again. That's an important message with the High Priestess. And she's holding the Torah. So the Torah is the Jewish sacred text. So there's information. She has the capacity to access divine knowing and sacred knowledge and bring it through. There's a lot. There's so much. There's even more in this card than I can get into. I mean, I could get into it, but I'm not going to. Good morning, Emily and Lynn and Tam. Fantastic Friday morning. Yes, it is fantastic. I got my Strip Cabin mug. Well, yay, with my face on it. It's like my headshot. So, this book, again, The Ultimate Guide to the Rider Waite Tarot. If you are interested, and don't think that you have to study the Rider Waite Tarot to be an excellent, amazing tarot card reader. You don't ever have to work with this deck. If you really, really don't like this deck, guess what? Don't use it. Don't use it. You can still be an amazing tarot reader. I'm a kind of a tarot geek and a tarot nerd. And after I was already comfortable reading with the deck I resonated with, I liked, and it really supported me expanding my knowledge of tarot to begin to work with this deck, to come back to the standard images that tarot has kind of evolved out of and have that foundation. I like having this foundation, and it did help me. It helped me as I began to work with even more decks that are very different, because I can cross-reference, because I can say, oh, well, in the Rider Waite Smith deck, the moon card, has this lobster down here and these like wolves or dogs howling at the moon. And another card might literally just have the moon on it. So all of this other symbolism and the information that is in that symbolism isn't in some of the other decks. And that's fine. And when I read the deck I'm using, but it can help to know that there's more to the moon than just the moon. There's a lot more. This is a deep card. So, I hope that helps. If any of you have been gifted a Rider Waite Smith deck, or you just have one laying around that you never really connected with, maybe knowing that there's more to the cards than at first glance you might have seen, it might help you form a connection, because I didn't connect with the images right off the bat. But once I realized they were chock full of symbolism, I love that. I'm a symbolism junkie. And so I was like, oh, wait, I can go down the rabbit hole in every single one of these cards. And so I did. I started going down the rabbit hole even more. And that only expanded my understanding of each of the cards, of the archetypes and energies and life stages they were all speaking to. So it was just really a beautiful journey for me of taking something I had at one point rejected and been like, oh, not connecting there. And then coming back to it with new eyes and more curiosity and getting to really connect and learn more than I had before. So if you're interested in getting back to the roots of tarot, this is kind of the standard images that the card game evolved into a system of divination and came out of. So Rider Waite Smith deck is where it's at, and you don't have to use it. I'm just offering it as a tool for people that really want to like get nerded out, because if you want to truly geek out on tarot, you kind of can't ignore this deck. It was just such a formative deck, and these images, even if again you've never seen tarot or picked it up, these specific images have been around so long, and it was kind of like where tarot formed its body, its foundation, that though these particular images really are in the collective unconscious. And Jung has studied this. Like they talk about in here how Carl Jung looked at the psychological function of the cards. Like with the swords, he said that they were related to thought, and the pentacles are sensory perception, the psychological function. And so there's so much in these cards, and they've been studied and researched and used for so many years that that creates in the collective unconscious information that you can access. Even if you're not, again, consciously aware, even if you haven't studied these cards, if you can get quiet and come into yourself, you can connect to this kind of unseen library of information. And the images on the cards, if you can allow it and be present with them, they will speak to your psyche. They will speak to your subconscious. There is a part of this tarot, most of tarot is not intellectual, okay? So you have to let yourself have an engagement and a relationship with these cards. And when I first started reading tarot, I was trying to come from my head too much. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to know that I had the meaning of the cards right. There is no right meaning. There isn't. There's layers of symbolism in every card, and different parts of the symbolism of the card will speak to you and be right at different times and for different readings and situations. So if you can look at each card as its own little library of symbolism, and then let those symbols speak to you in whatever way is best, and only you can know that for yourself. And that's why even when I do audio readings for people, I always send them a picture of the cards, because part of the reading is having your own relationship with the images. They work on the psyche and the subconscious in ways that I can't predict or explain. All I know is that you need to see your cards. You need to look at them. And you don't have to analyze it. You can look at the card and then just let the experience happen beyond the conscious mind, beyond the thought. There is an energetic experience happening with tarot, always. But when you are looking at the cards, even if someone else is doing a reading for you, you need to look at your cards and engage with it. Don't just listen to what someone says about the cards. You should be seeing your cards. So even when people are like, oh, no, you don't have to send me a picture. I'm like, no, I do. I'm sending you a picture of your cards. I need you to see it, because the reading isn't complete unless you have had a visual engagement of the cards. For people who are visually impaired, or just for whatever reason I can't send them a picture because that happened once. The picture just would not go through. I will like walk through a full description of what is going on in the card so that they can paint their own sense and picture of what's going on. It's that important. Please don't get readings where it's just someone telling you what the cards mean, because that's only a part of the reading. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of came back to Rider Waite Smith, is because I realized like it has actually way more layers of symbolism than a lot of the other decks that are out there on the market. And my tarot foundation was lacking until I really dove into the Rider Waite Smith deck. So there you have it. Send me your questions. Send me the other things about tarot you're wanting to know. I'm gonna go finish my coffee. Happy Leo season. Celebrate yourself. Yay! Bye, y'all.